My journey here on YouTube has been an interesting one, starting out many years ago when reviewing episodes and chapters was the general norm. The faster you were getting those reviews out, the better chance you had in competing with bigger YouTubers at the time. Obviously, this was a war of low quality, speedy reactions and shallow critiques, and even I was a part of that category. However, there was one series that I put a lot more time into compared to everything else. Almost like I wanted to do that series justice, whether it be with a theory or explaining something. Hell, even the criticism and reviewing side of it. This series, if you haven't already realized by the title, is Tokyo Ghoul. And I would be lying if I said TG didn't consume my life at the time. Just reading the series and indulging in its world, its characters, and how Sue Ishida handled emotions and symbolism is something I hadn't experienced before. Especially on such a consistent level of quality every single week. In the back of my mind, I knew something had to change. If I wanted to continue making content on this series that would do it justice and uphold the respect that I felt it deserved, I would have to change the approach to my own content, to the quality, to the effort, to the mindset surrounding it. I would have to push myself forward and dive deeper into understanding the nuances behind Tokyo Ghoul, so in return my videos wouldn't be a shallow reflection of it. This process of change at the time was nerve-wracking. Not knowing how to edit something to the standards I wanted was frustrating. Looking back, those hurdles may seem insignificant to where I am today, or even the knowledge I retained from spending so much time around Tokyo Ghoul and Sue Ishida's writing. But I know without those hurdles, without that genuine desire I had to fully appreciate and understand Tokyo Ghoul, I wouldn't be where I am today. I wouldn't have made the Tokyo Ghoul content I wholeheartedly appreciate, but more importantly, I wouldn't have met or contributed to the community surrounding Tokyo Ghoul. From its viewers and its readers to its Twitter community and the abundance of YouTubers that I still call close friends today. A lot of people may consider me as one of the leading hands for the TG community, and as honored as I am to be even considered or looked at as the quote-unquote go-to for Tokyo Ghoul content, I'm also happy to just be a massive part of the community, with all of the content I could give and how experiencing Tokyo Ghoul pushed me to be more of a creative person and explore different avenues. I'm sure you all remember the feeling of reading Tokyo Ghoul every single week. For some reason, it still is today an unparalleled experience. Even coming up to 2 years since it's been finished, I haven't felt that same connection to a weekly series since. I haven't read something that has raised so many different emotions every single week with such a consistent depth of detail. Don't get me wrong, there is an abundance of absolutely incredible series out there, and I'm more than positive you can relate to what I said with your own series that invokes those emotions. Sue Ishida definitely has a scary way of controlling the viewer's emotions and directing them to wherever he pleases. He was toying with us on a constant basis, which led to everyone looking deeper and deeper, trying to find whatever clues Ishida may have left in there. This is how so many in-depth theories were born, scouring the pages for symbolism every single chapter, then trying to connect them to characters and future events. Sometimes it wasn't even that deep, but the effect of how Ishida handled his story kept people guessing constantly, always keeping us on our toes and showcasing emotionally that no one is technically safe. By now, if you haven't read Tokyo Ghoul for some reason, you can see why the weekly reading experience was uncontested and unmatched. I think the best way to honor Tokyo Ghoul for everything that it has done for me is to reflect on specific things that I absolutely adore. The beauty of this is that every one of your own experiences and reflections is most likely going to be different in some way, shape, or form. We may end up loving the same thing, but considering there is such an endless amount of depth for everything within TG, where we are within that depth could be entirely different corners and sections. For me, that is a prominently beautiful thing that Tokyo Ghoul draws out of people. We can love the same thing, but our emotions behind it and how we interpret it is going to be completely different. And honestly, that's perfectly okay. So with all of this, let me take you somewhat back in time to re-experience the beauty that is Tokyo Ghoul, and to hopefully kickstart your own reflections on moments you wholeheartedly adore. For me, the center of everything Tokyo Ghoul is two different things: the overall tone of the story and Kaneki. But what's important about both things are how they progressively play off one another to bring Kaneki's development out into the spotlight in a more engaging and visceral type of way. This plays as the heartbeat of Tokyo Ghoul. When you consider what Kaneki's story tells us, the harsh experiences that he faces and the tremendous toil it takes on his mentality. Take a moment to think about where Kaneki started. A young, timid college student whose only friend was an opposite to him, outgoing, witty, and goofy. To their extremely normal and human everyday interaction with one another. It was quaint, simple, hell, even cute. Remember how quickly and viciously this was all ripped away from Kaneki. How a fateful encounter led him down a path of affection and love quickly turned into a nightmare he would continue to live. Seeing such an innocent person living a very simplistic life be thrown into a world of devouring darkness so ruthlessly was honestly heart-wrenching. You couldn't help but feel sorry for Kaneki, seeing how desperate he was to live and adapt and try to collect his thoughts, failing time and time again. His only thought of escape being suicide, but even that didn't relieve him from his tragedy. In such an extremely short amount of time, it should have set the tone heavily and made us well aware of what to expect for this character and for the world to come. A dark, relentless, and ruthless world that is entirely unforgiving, mixed with the introduction of mentally unstable characters with hidden agendas and complex moral standings. Horrific abilities would reflect your own mental state and push you to the brink of insanity if left open. At the front of all of this is a young, timid college boy who walks between both worlds, the world of humans and the world of ghouls. The mental progression of Kaneki for me is one of the most engaging things throughout Tokyo Ghoul. Not only do you get this constant and consistent depth to progression inlaid through the mental hurdle he faces, you also get to see everything being questioned, being pushed to its limits, basically leading up to and even tiptoeing around the line of insanity. The further he falls into this gritty world and confronts a variety of different people, including himself internally, the further his humanity starts to drift away, the further his mind starts to sink. It honestly really makes you question a lot of things about Kaneki before he was a ghoul, as a lot of emotions have evolved from prior emotions before becoming a ghoul. One that I value extremely heavily is the hints and subtle cues to Kaneki's suicidal nature while being human. It's actually not something that has been explicitly showcased in a simple way. Instead, throughout the entirety of Tokyo Ghoul and Tokyo Ghoul Re, the more we found out about Kaneki, about his past, his family, his mindset before everything, leads back to that rather saddening idea for him. That somewhere within his past lied dormant suicidal tendencies or something extremely close to it that changed his perspective on life, that changed his emotions. As being dragged into the world of ghouls brought out those dormant emotions, and as a certified one-eyed ghoul throughout TG and TG Re, he wanted to die. Even in some of the clearer times where his mentality was great and even thriving, he still wanted to die. There's a lot of things that add to this over time, that contribute heavily to how he perceives himself, and if what he is doing is even worth it. Is living a life like this even worth it? The journey of understanding himself felt somewhat personal to me. It was extremely impactful. As realistic and sometimes even hard to witness moments, Ishida made sure to handle it with care, with understanding of that mental state, the control of such intense and high velocity emotions. It made Kaneki feel like a real human being that you could relate to in some way, on a very personal and deep level. And because of how personalized it felt, if you yourself understood those escalation in emotions, it cemented itself in your brain and even your heart. When you take all of this into consideration and realize how this was shown on a weekly basis with such symbolic and beautiful artwork, you can realize why reading Tokyo Ghoul every single week was such an experience. To the point where for me, even till today, it has not been matched whatsoever. It's impressive that Sue Ishida could keep up such a level of quality so constantly, but it took a massive toll on him, physically, mentally, even emotionally. Unfortunately, a lot of authors face this overwhelming pressure that comes with producing such content, and you can tell it was doing damage to Ishida within certain written interviews. Obviously, I have an endless amount of respect for Ishida, but the real reason I mention it is how it changed his viewpoint for his own story. It genuinely started to affect his emotions towards his own writing, and he even started to question himself more, to the point where for a decent amount of time, he absolutely hated everything he was doing and wanted to end it then and there. This is a vital contribution on why the ending of Tokyo Ghoul Re isn't what people actually expected. He wanted to avoid making people go through what he was going through emotionally by manipulating the ending into something more positive and uplifting. In his own words, and I quote, "The ending was going to be a catastrophe, a train wreck. Looking back, as much as a tragic ending would have fit perfectly, alongside stories and characters not getting cut short, he emotionally completed people's journeys. I hold an endless amount of respect for him, and after reading those interviews, it filled out my outlook on not only him as a mangaka, but others as well. Now, I could easily ramble on about the cast of characters Ishida pushes into his story and how they interact with one another while not being in the center spotlight, but instead I want to focus on his art and how he uses symbolism within it to communicate different emotions and ideas. I really wish I could just show just how intense and raw his art style is within the manga, his attention to detail, facial expressions, body movement, and paneling work. For me, the stuff that stands out above the rest is how he pulls out the emotion of characters, which reflects on the background heavily, all while being extremely diligent with choosing his paneling work. How a character is posed and presented to the reader. Sometimes it can be extremely overwhelming for the eyes, but it's usually by Ishida's choice, as a lot of those cluttered moments reflect a cluttered state of mind. When you mix this with the symbolism he independently connects with characters and the overall symbolism that incorporates the atmosphere of the world, you get a large amount of different stories being told from every single page, every single interaction, every single fight. An anomaly that sits within that place and changes things in an instant as soon as it's played upon is the more advanced ghoul abilities such as the half and full Kakujos. Singular abilities that morph and change with the mindset of a character, all having unique and gritty appearances that build the physical form of that character's emotions. This keeps every character's abilities completely unique to themselves, as you also get to witness their evolution over time and how it affects and molds their own powers. Now mix in the cannibalization of other ghouls into that and you start having the mentality and emotions of other characters built into your own manifested abilities. This may sound over the top and even confusing, but Ishida makes sure not to overwhelm you with too much information too quickly. He slowly and methodically brings it in one by one into the story, creating this nice gradual build up and evolution over time. You can see why all of this was extremely difficult to push into other mediums like the anime and live action. With how intense and hard hitting a lot of the moments were within TG, it's not surprising those mediums couldn't live up to that expectation. Even looking back now, I feel it would be extremely difficult to capture Tokyo Ghoul's beauty and atmosphere within an anime, unless it had no time or money restrictions mixed with directors and artists and animators that want to do the manga justice. But we don't live in a perfect world, and it's unfortunate the anime-only people that don't want to check out the manga may not ever experience the legitimate Tokyo Ghoul story. Without a doubt, Tokyo Ghoul was such an incredible experience. Being heartbroken and anxious alongside the community every single week and being a part of that was mesmerizing. It's something that I can't thank you enough for. If for whatever reason you've made it this far and haven't read Tokyo Ghoul or even Tokyo Ghoul Re, I wholeheartedly recommend you do. I understand it may not be for everyone, but if the off chance you've only watched the anime, just know it doesn't do the story justice. If you hate reading, take the bullet, read the manga, and experience the tragedy of Ken Kaneki. I can promise you it will be 100% worth your time, and potentially even stick with you for the rest of your life. So that being said, that is basically it. I hope you all enjoyed this video. I've been meaning to do something like this for a very long time. I just didn't really know how to go about it in honoring Tokyo Ghoul or Tokyo Ghoul Re even. So I thought I would break it up just to Tokyo Ghoul alone and maybe potentially do Tokyo Ghoul Re in the future. I really enjoy rambling about series that I wholeheartedly appreciate and have a lot of respect to, that I'm passionate about. This could potentially be a series in itself, honoring different series that I've read and that have impacted me. So if you would like to see more stuff like this, please do let me know. I would love to hear your thoughts. With this, I feel like this is a appropriate send-off for being some of the last content I make surrounding Tokyo Ghoul. It's not a series that I inherently want to milk constantly. I've done way too many videos on it. I've talked about a lot of different things, and even now it's almost impossible to find things that I haven't talked about other than expressing my enjoyment for the series. So I thought I would make this video just that, reliving some experiences and going through some of the great things that I appreciate from the story that impacted me. Who knows, maybe in the future we'll get the Tokyo Ghoul re-version of this video, but I guess only time will tell. With that being said, I want to thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.